Hello. If you're listening to this, you probably are about to listen to a wonderful episode of Irrational Confidence in which we recorded the entire thing and at the very end found out Dejounte Murray was traded to the Pelicans. So we're going to talk about that really quickly. The full details of the deal is Dejounte Murray for Larry Nance Jr., Dyson Daniels, a 2025 first round pick from the Lakers, and a 2027 first round pick, which will be the least favorable of the Bucks or Pelicans. So the Pelicans add a star guard. They trade away players that they didn't really need. They have a lot of depth on the wings, and it just cost them two firsts. So you're going to get our literal first reactions. So, Caelan, I'll throw it to you first. What was your first reaction to seeing this deal come through?
Yeah, this is a really good trade for the Pels. Only two firsts, and Dyson Daniels. That's fine. They already had Herb Jones and Trey Murphy, same guy, twice over. So that's fine for me. And adding Dejounte Murray, yeah, to McCollum and Alvarado, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy. That's a nice little wing set there. I think that's an intimidating group for Western Conference teams. Like they're pretty deep. If Dejounte Murray gets back to playing that nasty version of that Spurs ball he was playing when he was still young and hungry, and before he got to San Antonio or before he got to Atlanta and stopped playing defense, the Pels are going to be an issue. Although I will add one thing before I turn over to you guys is it's another ball handler. All right, they still have Zion, still have Ingram, still have CJ. All right, so that's four guys who want the basketball.
I had two initial reactions in hearing this news about 2 minutes ago. The first reaction is, what are the Hawks doing? We just found out that Mikal Bridges got traded for 6 billion picks, and you only got 2 picks back. You could maybe count Dyson Daniels as a pick. He's a really, really young player. Like maybe that's 3 picks, but that plus Larry Nance equals DeJounte Murray. I know he didn't have the best reputation right now, didn't have a great time in Atlanta, but I think we all believe that there's a really incredible basketball player in there somewhere. And the fact that the Hawks couldn't sell that is really surprising to me. Shout out to the Pelicans. I think they, really stole from the Hawks in this situation. And shout out to them for adding such talent to their roster. I agree with you,
Real
Caelan.
quick, you thought that Murray has more value than Mikal Bridges, or less, or about the same?
If not close to the same, man, like if it was like 1 pick less than the Mikal Bridges, I'd be like, okay, you're just kind of splitting hairs there.
Okay.
And, organization, like that's right. 2 picks is crazy compared to the 5 or even the 4 that Rudy Gobert got. Like, and that players in general are more valuable. The fact that you can only get 2 picks for DeJounte Murray is just very interesting to me. I agree with you. Way too many ball handlers on the roster right now. So this, to me, my second reaction was like, oh, Brandon Ingram's definitely gone.
Oh, like, Ingram.
he's out of there. There's no way. Like this is clearly either insurance for him leaving or plans on sending him out. Like it just does not feel like that core is going to be sticking together between CJ, BI, and Zion. Micah, what were you thinking when you saw this trade? Besides, we got to get the pod going again. And what was your first reaction?
Yeah, initially I was livid because we had just hit end record. But other than that, I think it makes sense. I don't think it's a super high cost to get someone like DeJounte Murray. I am curious to see what this means for Trae Young. That's probably my first thought. Does this mean they're going semi-rebuild and they're going to keep Trae, or are they going fire sale? Are we about to get a Trae notification? I'm also going to be curious to see the value compared to those two. DeJounte makes a lot less, so that contract's easier to move. But yeah, I like it for New Orleans. I wish they could move CJ. CJ just signed that extension, and he was not very good last year. Lit up the Heat in the game me and Lino were at, but for the most part was not great. It was a problem defensively, so... And honestly, CJ's main thing is mid-range pull-up shooting, and now you have somebody that excels in that with DeJounte. I will tell you guys, I was just scrolling Twitter to see if we're missing anything else, and Woj said New Orleans, well, first he says like, oh, he's going to help their clutch factor. But he says the Pelicans remain committed to a core that includes Zion Williams and CJ McCollum. the final sentence in the tweet says, Pels are trying to find common ground with Brandon Ingram. ...
Yeah, he's out of
Oh,
there.
wow.
He's
Wow.
out of there.
That's so interesting. You know, this is crazy that Ingram is taking a lot. He's taking pretty much 100% of the flack on like how that season ended when he got benched. And Zion, bro, they benched CJ McCollum too. He was not in the game either. And they were
Mhm.
coming back. And I think Ingram playing so terribly for Team USA also really hurt his stock. He's been awful since then, pretty much.
Yeah.
He's had
It's
a
just
rough
not
season.
been good for him. Going back to the Hawks real quick. Did they get this man out of the way for Ricochet? I hope not. They said we need more space for Ricochet to cook. Let's
Oh
let's
my
get
god.
Murray out of
Yeah.
I
here.
didn't want to. I took like a very. And when you guys listen to the pod after this, you'll see that I took a very positive outlook. I only wanted to talk about the things I liked about the draft. I didn't talk about any of the things I didn't like. But it seems we're being forced into a corner here with this Atlanta Hawks situation. That would be really crazy to move Dejounte Murray so you could get Zachary Rizachet some more shots up. But maybe that's what they're
Yeah.
doing.
Feels like
Yeah.
it a little bit.
I am super curious to see where the Hawks go from here. And I'm also interested. Well, I guess we'll get more reporting, but do you guys think the Pelicans were interested in Trey? Because I almost feel like a table setter like that to get Zion and different
Honestly,
guys' looks would be interesting. But, that hurts your defense. So I just wonder. It's just so interesting to have two high level guards available that play differently and just those kind of conversations. Like before this, every team that called Atlanta were they like, well, what's the price for Dejounte versus Trey? Oh, okay, well, we'll talk about Dejounte. It's just very interesting from a transaction standpoint.
do you guys think Trey stays in Atlanta? Or for me, I
Yeah.
feel like this is definitely the first step of at least two, maybe three more moves for both of these teams. Like this is. Do you guys see in any scenario where this is just it for them, or do you guys feel like this has to precede another move for either the Hawks or the Pelicans?
I feel like the smart thing to do is just to fully send the blow up, unless
Yeah.
Trey's value is just awful. But yeah, I mean, you might as well be bad. I see it. I have to check. I think they have their own pick this year though. So yeah, I don't see why you wouldn't tank out unless you don't.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I think they want to keep Trey. I think my most honest opinion is they don't really have a fully formed plan. Most likely that's the most
Mm.
likely thing. But I think that they want to keep Trey, and I don't begrudge them for that. I don't know about just blowing this whole thing up and just being ass for however many years, hoping that your execs can competently rebuild this thing until what? I don't
Yeah.
know. Just keep Trey for now. For me,
At
maybe
least so he
research
gets his
that.
value up because
Right?
this is a first
Yeah,
round pick who was like an offensive demon for the first few years of
dude,
his career.
dude.
If you get him back there, you can.
Not to just all the way jump back into the episode, but did you like Ricochet over Sar? I thought pairing, not a star, whatever you want to call him, a big man next to Trey would have been really good, and just a better pairing. I don't know. Did, how'd y'all feel about Ricochet over Sar?
I would have picked Sar.
Yeah.
I was really convinced they were going to pick Sar, and then I was very confused when they didn't. I think Reza Shea is going to be a good player in the league. I don't love the fit in Atlanta, and I'm not exactly sure what the philosophy behind the decision was. But it's more interesting now that DeJounte Murray isn't there because there's just a little bit more ball handling to go around now that he's not there. Um, but yeah, we'll see. Michael, what did you think?
Yeah, I didn't love it just because I thought Sar was a better player. I think I'd have Ricochet probably like fifth in this class, somewhere in
Mhm.
that range.
Sheesh.
So
Oh my
yeah,
god.
it's his safest pick probably. Like he's definitely going to be a 3-and-D wing, and some people
Is it the
think of him
safest pick?
higher.
I feel like Sar is the safest pick. Just anchor your
Yeah,
defense for 10
yeah,
years. You
I
know?
agree. I mean, but it's at least an archetype has value, even if he ends up being a healthy Otto Porter Jr. So I don't know. It's not what I would have done, but it's also a new front office that it's in a tough spot with where this roster's at. So
Yeah, no
I
shit.
I don't want to kill them too much because they were in a rough spot.
Man,
Also, I think I have confirmed now. So Atlanta's 2025 first is owed to San Antonio, fully unprotected.
oh
So
no.
they shouldn't tank next year because they won't get that guy.
Fully unprotected for Dejounte Murray? That was crazy.
Yeah.
I was curious. Do you remember what the full trade was for Dejounte Murray?
Let me pull it up. We talked about some pod. I think it was 3 firsts,
I
but
think
I
it
can
was
definitely
three
try and find
first.
that out. It's going to be
Unprotected.
hard to search Dejounte trade right now because it's just goofy.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, and I guess it makes sense that the value of his initial trade is going to be more than the value of his trade now because he had a worse season or worse few seasons rather. But it is
Yeah, it
it
was
is a
three
very interesting
three
thing to think
firsts
about.
and a swap. It looks like.
Oh, okay,
Holy
well,
cow, man.
So the Spurs, if I'm
They're
reading this right,
screwed.
the Spurs control the Hawks draft from 25 through 27.
Oh man. And the Hawks are just gonna keep being lottery picks.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
they
Because
So
they're
don't
not
have.
I
going to the playoffs next year, no question. No.
yeah. So unless they can get their picks back for Trey, like if they send him to San Antonio,
I'm not
I
giving you
probably
these picks
wouldn't.
back. You
Yeah, no.
stink.
Definitely not for sure. I don't know. I would Trey Young in San Antonio would be something, but
It doesn't feel like a
um,
pop player.
yeah, it doesn't feel like a
True.
pop player at all. But yeah, I'm keeping those picks for dear life because that's exactly
Oh
what the
yeah.
Spurs gambled on. Is like, we think you guys are going to be bad in the next 5 years. So
You know
Mhm.
what, Micah?
we have these.
Now that you say that, yeah, because earlier I'm talking about the Spurs, trading away their pick to the Timberwolves. No, they have plenty more to come in a better draft. Yeah, that's fine.
That's sickening. Actually, the Spurs are insane. They said
God,
you guys can have this. We
let me
have the
shut up.
Atlanta
The
Hawks
Spurs
pick
do know
next
what they're
year.
doing. Let me stop.
So
So when you
here
guys listen to this episode, Caelan does go on a bit of a number on the Spurs.
the
Easy,
this is
easy.
another tweet from Woj. This is definitely like from the Hawks front office. It says the Hawks are ending the Trey Murray or Murray Trey Young experiment, bringing on a promising young wing and Dyson Daniels, and getting a pick in a deep 2025 draft. Landry Fields knew the Hawks had to make a move for the backcourt, and there's still more work to be done this offseason. So that
Yep.
seems like it could read either way. It definitely doesn't sound like they're also going to trade Trey, but it doesn't say they're not. So
Bro, whenever a team has a wealth of an archetype, whatever you're getting, trust me, that's the worst one. Whenever I watch our guy Vanderbilt play, like when we first got Vanderbilt, I was so happy. Then I'm like, they kept the better one. McDaniels is so much better than him. It's not even funny.
It's true. When they were
that's
on the same
tough.
team together, I was like, these two are the same guy.
These two
It's
are
awesome that they
great. They're
have
the
both
same
of them.
guy.
Watching
And now
them
you're like, no,
separately.
one's way better than the other.
One
Oh, I
is
didn't.
way, way better. That's such a good point. Wow.
So yeah,
Uh,
Dyson Daniels is the worst of the three they have, no question. He's not a young star, not a property. He's just a nice little guy to have.
when is Larry Nance Jr. going to find a home? That guy's like a nice dude.
Well,
I'm
people would
tired
keep
of
him
watching
if he
him.
stayed. They'd keep him. He's never healthy.
Man.
Um,
Like he's a great theoretical player.
Do we have any other reactions, any thoughts before we let these people listen to the rest of the episode?
I think my prediction right now would be that Trey stays. I think with no
Yeah.
picks, like I feel like they did a step backwards to hopefully not have to take a full leap backwards. So
Mm-hmm.
that would be my
Let's
guess. And yeah,
hope.
I mean New Orleans got better, and we'll see how much better. I guess I don't know if I'd pick them to be like a home court team in the West, but they
Well,
got better.
we're gonna watch the BI thing is in
Yeah.
Philly.
That's going to be the
That's
next one.
interesting.
You guys might
I
be hearing from us again in 20 minutes. Who knows?
oh
But
my
we'll see.
god. That's so true. This turns that into a pressure cooker now. I think,
Mhm.
yeah, that's so true.
We're just gonna wait by
Wow.
our laptops for the rest of the day.
Honestly. All right, everyone. Well, I'm gonna check my notifications one last time. Actually, is it's slight small news. Heat guard Josh Richardson is picking up his $3 million player option, so he's returning to the team. So that's
That'll
exciting.
do.
That's a
That's
that's
you're very liberal with the word exciting there.
All
hey.
right. And now enjoy the rest of the Irrational Confidence episode, which we cover the drafts, some free agency before all this news broke, and Bronny James to the Lakers.
and welcome in to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. My name is Micah. I am joined, as always, by my fellow hosts and friends, Lino and Caelan. We have an exciting episode for everyone today. We are going to do a draft recap, talk a little bit about some of our favorite prospects and where they ended up. We're going to be covering an extensive news list, including a lot of extensions, signings, and even a couple trades. And then with free agency starting this weekend, we'll do a little free agency preview, maybe a couple predictions of where we think these guys end up. So to start with the news, I think the easiest thing to do is to start with signings and extensions because these are all guys you know what team they play on, and now they're just going to be making more money playing for that same team. So that list includes Scotty Barnes, who got a huge deal from the Raptors, Bam, who got a 3-year extension from the Heat, OG Anunoby got a 5-year deal from the Knicks. Nick Claxton got a 4-year deal from Brooklyn. And then today, Emmanuel Quickley got a large deal from Toronto as well. So a lot of teams prioritizing keeping their guys. They're going to be making a lot of money. And we'll see kind of how those contracts look down the road. But tying into the OG Anunoby contract, which might be the most interesting one, the New York Knicks also made a huge trade since our last episode. They sent essentially 5 first-round picks, a pick swap, and a second-round pick, plus some matching salary to Brooklyn to acquire Mikal Bridges. So now they've retained OG Anunoby. They've added Mikal Bridges. They still have Brunson, DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, Josh Randall, or Julius Randle. So it's a loaded roster in New York. And Lino, I want to throw it to you first. What are you thinking about this Knicks team and where they stack up in the Eastern Conference next year?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think the McCall Bridges trade in general is interesting. Bridges is going to contribute to this contender. I think they were a contender last year. I think they'll be even more so moving forward. But at the same time, 5 first is kind of crazy. Like, I understand the Knicks are trying to capitalize on this moment. This is their window. But my concern going all in on a team that doesn't have a single top 10 player on the roster, depending on how you feel about Jalen Brunson, is just that they may be going all in and it's still not enough to crest over the Boston Celtics or any other future teams that we see, or even any of the super teams we have in the West. So I thought this was a player that really fits well on this roster. I think it takes advantage of the things that they do really well already, but I'm just not sure it's enough. And I'm not sure not doing enough fits and makes it worthwhile to use this much draft capital. But Caelan, what were you thinking about the trade, about the Knicks team moving forward?
This is a tough one, dude. This is a real tough one. There's definitely two different angles to look at it. I mean, listen, if they win a championship, you can't really question it like that. That's kind of why everyone's playing the game, right? But on the other hand, on the other end, as a Lakers fan, um, I remember people kind of making fun of the Lakers for doing like what was 3 first-round picks, some swaps for Anthony Davis, a couple of role guys, and then Brandon Ingram. I feel like people thought that was way too much, and it kind of feels like we're in a much different place in the NBA, to be completely honest, when than we were when that trade was made, because this feels a lot more commonplace now. Um, to be honest, it feels almost like NBA contracts now. How the contracts are kind of crazy, but it's just kind of the new norm. It's kind of the way things are going, and like with these types of trades, it's just kind of like the new. I don't know. It's just kind of the new norm. Like if you want one of those guys, then like the price is high, um, and I tend to look at this as not just like 5 or 6 picks for just Mikal Bridges. He kind of completes like what they're doing. I feel like
Mhm.
maybe if they figured out something for Julius Randle, they might even could go another level. But as of right now, he kind of completes what they're doing. They're a real like championship contender now, in my opinion. So it's hard to
Yeah.
put a price on that. It's hard to put a price on, like, in reality in the NBA, there's probably like 2 to 3 teams every year that can realistically win. Although we feel like there's 5 or 6 or 7, there's probably not that many. And I think the Knicks are like a legitimate contender to at least go there. Like they can compete with the Celtics now. So, hard to put a price on that. It was a steep price, but I don't hate them for making the deal at all.
Mm-mm.
I agree with that. I think it's one of those examples where, perfect can be the enemy of good. It's like,
Yes.
they could have waited and maybe, a wing who can do more creation and it's a two-way guy shakes loose. But you just never know if that guy's going to come around. And it's a steep price. But Caelan, I think you hit on it perfectly. Like trade value in the NBA is it's hard as it's ever been. Well, since I've been watching to calibrate, I guess, to kind of expect what something will be worth because
Hmm.
you think like Mikal Bridges got about the same as Rudy Gobert, and the first year after the Rudy Gobert trade, it was the worst trade in NBA history, and then in the second year, they almost went to the finals, and so it's like it's so hard to get a gauge. And then same thing, it's like Mikal Bridges is worth 5 firsts, and Alex Caruso is worth Josh Giddey. It's like, how do you, it's so hard to figure out where, and Mikal Bridges is good, but will probably never be an all-star, definitely won't ever be all NBA, but he does complete the team like you alluded to, Caelan. So I like it for them. It's a move I wish, my team would do, like the Heat. I'd be okay with them going all in on a perfect missing piece, but a lot of
Hmm.
times they like to wait for superstar X to become available, which that's worked for them too, but it's just, not everybody can be Boston and get, Drew Holiday and Derek White for like nothing.
Yeah,
It
not
it
everybody
also
has
makes
Brad
a
Stevens in
it
the
also
office.
makes a difference when you talk about how much assets does a team have, right? If you
Yeah.
have like a lot of your assets plus a few other teams' assets, okay, it's not a big deal to move a lot, but a lot of
Hmm.
teams don't have that. A lot of teams aren't in that
Mhm.
situation. So 5 first round picks, that's everything for a team. They have nothing, so
It's like all their picks for the next 7 years, but the
right,
Mhm.
Knicks will probably be able to
right.
recover from this relatively fast.
Hmm.
Yeah, you guys are definitely swinging me. I was not all out on it, but I was definitely hesitant. I was like, I don't know about this. But after hearing y'all, I think I'm a little bit more excited about it. And I do agree that they're definitely a contender this year.
Yeah, I think I'd have them number 2 in the East right now. I think,
Mm,
Milwaukee, it's hard to trust after how wonky last year is.
yeah.
Philly's roster literally has 2 guys on it right now, so that could change, but, projecting like average to slightly above average role players in those spots, like, I wouldn't put them above New York, and we'll see what kind of shakes out after that. But I think it was a great move for them and gives them a lot of depth. The only question I have is there's still not a ton of offensive creation outside of Jalen
Hmm.
Brunson. You know, Mikel's not somebody you want running 35 pick and rolls a game. And he's not even really somebody you want like hunting mismatches. So in the playoffs, I think Julius Randle is still really important for this team. And that's, could be an issue. I mean, Julius Randle's been an all NBA player. Like as good as OG and Mikhail are, they haven't done that. So it's something where they're gonna have to figure out the best kind of lineup. Cause now, I mean, I don't even know who they're gonna start, really. I mean, they have a lot of depth and good wings now.
Well, it depends on who they're playing. I saw if they're playing the Pacers. I saw Josh Hart turn into Gilbert Arenas against them. So
Listen, that's the other thing. I was thinking about that today actually. Their small ball lineups are gonna be crazy now
oh
because
yeah,
you could do
They're going to be
OG at
vicious.
center. Like he's fine. He guarded Embiid for some of those games, and you can do OG, Hart, McHale, DiVincenzo, Brunson, and just switch everything. And that's without Randall and other guys. So
yeah.
they're gonna be really good. So it'll
But it
be
will be interesting though
fun.
if they lose Hardenstein. Mitchell Robinson's guy's injured every year. Like he
True.
never plays a full season, so that could be a precarious situation if Mitch goes down again.
I have another question for you guys before we move on. Um, we've talked a lot about team building, salary cap. Everything that the Knicks are doing is allowed because Jalen Brunson is horrendously underpaid right now. He's making like 20 million a year. It's the best contract in the NBA.
Mhm.
But my question is, people have talked about it with his extension. I believe under the new CBA, you can only do 140% of the last year of that player's current contract. So they
Mhm.
really can't give him a huge max without him hitting free agency. Do you guys think there's a chance this was some kind of like, hey, if you'll agree to this cheap extension, like we'll go all in right now?
Good
That's not
question.
outside of the question, but I suppose I don't know that there was any other situation they could have done contractually with him. It's just kind of, it's just, I think that's just the way it was. Like, I don't know if it was contrived or not.
Yeah, I just wonder if we'll get that Woj bomb in a couple days. Like he signs an extension where he's way underpaid.
Yeah. There's a big time player who's going to do that in the league. It's probably going to be Brunson in this situation. They just have like this whole, they have this whole in the family deal going on with the CAA, Leon
Yep.
Rose stuff in their front office. Like, they have a different level of communication with their star. So I can see him, maybe taking somewhat of a haircut to try and build something special in New York. Like that is viable for me, I think.
Yeah, a lot more off court opportunities when you play there. Maybe they
Absolutely.
bump up his dad's salary a little bit on the coaching staff. Like,
That's illegal. That's
it's
Yeah,
hey,
we need
coaches
that
aren't on the
investigation
salary
immediate.
cap.
Adam, are you here? Are you listening?
So, and to move on, that was not the only deal Brooklyn made since the last episode. They also did a trade with Houston. It's pretty complicated with all the different pick swaps. The main point is Brooklyn got back some of their own picks from the original James Harden trade to Brooklyn, which allows them to fully tank next year, hopefully get Cooper Flag or someone like that, I'm sure. And what that allowed Houston to do apparently is to get ready to try and pursue Kevin Durant because they acquired Phoenix's picks from Brooklyn. It was
foolish.
it was so strange. It was like, so Woj tweets out, "Oh, massive deal just about these picks," and then immediately follows it up with, "This puts them in position to pursue Kevin Durant." And then a minute later tweets, "But the Phoenix doesn't want to trade Kevin Durant." And then another few minutes later, "They could pursue Devin Booker down the line." And it's like, who's feeding you all this back and forth information? It was like he was a puppet that these like organizations were taking turns with.
You know what I
Oh,
So
thought?
yeah,
I thought that it really felt like, imagine if, and we're all married now, but imagine if, you had a girlfriend and some lady just started, or let's say like some other person was like buying a bunch of stuff that your girlfriend likes. And it's like, yeah, this is, because you guys are probably going to break up down the road. And it's like, we're not going to break up down the road. It's just like,
yeah.
yeah, okay, whatever. We got this stuff whenever you're ready to come get it.
Like,
It's
hey,
like, this is wild. Because
it's
Matt
like,
Ishbia even tweeted like later
yeah,
that day, it's like, hey, we love Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant loves us. He wants to be here. We want him to be here. There's no trade happening. And Houston's
yeah.
just like, okay, buddy, we've seen this rodeo before. I think we know
That's
where this
crazy.
show's
Ime
going.
Udoka is just reading like a ton of Jane Austen. He's like, "Don't worry about it. Might come in handy later." It's just like, why are you reading my girl's favorite artist or author?
Just
So yeah, so we'll kind of monitor that. I don't think anything's gonna happen, but certainly weird. And we know Kevin Durant, can turn on a dime. So we'll see. And the last deal was more about money than anything else, but Jaren's Dallas Mavericks are sending Tim Hardaway Jr. to Detroit. They're attaching 3 second-round picks and acquiring Quentin Grimes in return. This is essentially allows them to get under the first apron so they can offer the full mid-level exception to Derek Jones Jr. So this is basically, they needed to move Hardaway's contract so they can hopefully keep Derek Jones Jr. in the offseason. So hopefully they'll be able to do that. He was a big part of their run. And with that, we can move into the NBA draft. It was an exciting night in the league. There were a lot of fun landing spots. Lino, I just want to ask you off the bat, what was your favorite pick just in the top five?
My favorite pick was actually not my favorite pick when it happened. We talked a little bit about this out after or before the show, just about the Spurs picking a non-shooter in Steven Castle. But as I thought about it, and as I kind of looked at Castle's tape and did a little bit of research, I actually feel pretty good about what he brings to the table right now. I think he's a very well-rounded player, defensive stalwart, got great size, has really good playmaking skills, and surrounding Wimby with people who can pass the ball is going to be of the utmost importance. And when you can get a player who might be one of the highest ceilings as far as point of attack defense that you can pair up with Wimby, that's probably going to be a little bit more rare than good shooting, as you can kind of tool shooting around Wimby whenever you guys are ready to make that big launch into a competitive season. So I feel like Stephen Castle's probably, or Stephon Castle rather. I'm not exactly sure which one it is, but I feel like he has the safest upside to me in this top five, at least, and so I was actually really excited about that one compared to the other picks. What about you, Micah?
I think I echo what you said. At first, I was like, man, more non-shooters around Wimby, but also it's like Jeremy Sohan's probably not going to be on the next great Spurs team. So, like, do you
Hmm.
really include the guys they have now? Like,
Yeah,
maybe Castle ends up being the only non-shooter on the next, like, conference final Spurs team. So, and
yeah,
San Antonio's developed shooting now. Chip England isn't there anymore. He's coaching for the Thunder, but they still believe they can develop that. So hopefully that works out. But my favorite pick was Reed Shepard to Houston. It was
really.
something, yeah, it was something that's been mocked a long time. So it wasn't like shocking. But the more I thought about it, it just fits so perfectly because I think Van Fleet is a good comp for him. He can learn under someone like that, learn how to be a good defender with great hands from another small guard. And his shooting is going to be so helpful for their guys, and now they have a potentially a Reed Shepard, a Min Thompson backcourt for like 10 years. And I just think that's a wonderful thing to have banked along with Shengun.
Cool.
And, a Min is such an incredible defender. He'll be able to protect Reed. Reed can always guard, the worst guard on the other team when they're on
Hmm.
the court together. So I just think all his weaknesses are covered really well there, and his strengths will really help out the other players. So I think it's a great situation. I think it's something where Jalen Green's probably there this year. Maybe next
Hmm.
year we kind of
Yeah, that
start
was
thinking
my.
about,
That's where I was a little confused about it. I was like, okay, it's getting a little crowded in the garden room right
yeah.
now. I'm like,
And a min
uh,
can be a wing, but
yeah.
I think because he can guard guards, it would be nicer to have him play up. Now the shot has to work for him too. He has to figure that out,
Mhm.
but more shooting around him if he's going to be a non-shooter could be cool. So I just really like Reed Shepard. I think he'll be a solid NBA player. So that was exciting. We did have a couple trades I wanted to cover that happened during the draft. The
Oh yeah.
first one happened right before the draft, which was Denny Advia got traded to Portland for the 14th overall pick, which became Bub Carrington, and a future a future
Yeah,
first
Mr. Dejounte.
went to Washington. So interesting. My first thing was like, what does Portland want Denny Avdia for? Because I feel like he's just a solid role player. Like he's a vet at this point. Like I was expecting a contender to go after him. So but I love Washington getting Bub Carrington. So like I like that for them. Like they finally have a guard, you can
Dude.
be excited about.
What
And I mean, Denny will help Portland. My guess would be Denny might be traded by this year's trade deadline because Portland's going to realize they're bad again and just be like, well, contenders are going to want this guy. We'll go get a bad first. So we'll see. Lino, did you have any thoughts on that deal?
Yeah, I there were so many. What was so fun about this draft cycle was there were so many first reactions that changed over the course of between the draft and today when we were recording. Because I had a similar reaction. I was like, "What the heck do they need Denny Avdia for?" And then I go to YouTube, I look up Denny Avdia, I see what people like who actually watch him play are saying. I watch some of the tape, and I'm like, "This is actually a really good player to
Mm-hmm.
add to any roster, but especially one where you need spacing. His shooting has gotten really, really good. And he was having an incredible back half of the season. I believe
Mm-hmm.
in February, he was averaging like 23, 9, and 3 on 60% shooting and 50% from three. Now that was just in
Wow.
February, but over the season, I'm pretty sure he averaged like 41, 42% from three. And so like he's really opened up the spacing until he's gotten really good at cutting, and his ability to just make smart plays at his size and his speed is going to be really crucial for players like Scoot Henderson who need some more space on the floor. And so I think Scoot, um, and the rest of this team are really going to benefit from having him there. Is it going to be enough to make them not as terrible as they were last year? I'm not sure, but I do think it's a worthwhile pickup. And clearly, they just like to spite the Miami Heat and knew that they had the pick right before us and knew we were going for Bub Carrington, and so decided to find a way to move Bub Carrington to another team because for some reason they hate us. But that's just that. Caelan, did you have any thoughts on that trade?
Dude, so I saw some other people as well saying that they thought that he would like go to a contender and he could help them, and he can. He's a good player, but at 23 years old, I don't know if Denny Advia is like. just ready to just say, I'm a role player in this league. That's fine. I think he thinks he's more of a real player than that. I
Oh
think
yeah.
I don't know what he's thinking, but I think he should embrace this opportunity to go to Portland and like have a
Ball
bigger
out.
role in the offense and maybe see like if he has not reached the full extent. I think he's a real player, and I think he could at least be like the number 3 on a championship
Mhm.
team. I think he could, and I think he was held back by Jordan Poole, especially in the first half
Yes,
of the
bro.
season when Poole was in the starting lineup.
Mhm.
It looked pretty miserable for him. So and you mentioned him coming on later in the season. I
February.
think that was when Poole went to the bench, and then he had a better situation. So I'm happy for him going to Portland. I hope he gets more opportunity. I think what was it, like 14 and a half points or something for his career. I think he can do a little more than that. I think he's a really good
Oh
player.
yeah.
So
That's awesome. I like that take. I hadn't considered that angle of it, but you're right. I mean,
he's only
to
23.
yeah, and to me, I feel like people saw him playing, not to use a cliche, but the right way on a bad team, like
Hmm.
playing hard on defense, making the right pass, and
He
so people are like,
was.
"Oh,
Mhm.
he could be a role player on a contender." But you're right. I mean, he definitely could have more upside. So I hope we get to see that. I hope Scoot Henderson and Anthony Simons are aware that he
Oh.
wants to shoot more. That'll that'll be something Chauncey Billups needs to kind of figure out. But I do hope we get more Denny because that
Oh,
would be
God bless
fun.
Chauncey, man. I feel bad for him
Yeah.
sometimes. He just out there, he's getting his ass whooped for years. There's
Yep.
no change in sight.
Mm-mm. Well, thought he was gonna be coaching Dame. It's
He
tough.
did. He did.
It's tough. Speaking of super fun guards that are really good at pull up jumpers, Rob Dillingham somehow ended up in Minnesota. To me, this is the most shocking news of the night. So, San Antonio had two top 10 picks. They took Castle at 4, and then they took Dillingham at 8, which I thought made total sense for them, shooting, on ball creation. And then we get a notification that the pick is being sent to Minnesota for a 2030 swap and a 2031 unprotected first. So Minnesota, as you probably recall, traded away almost all of their picks in the Rudy Gobert trade. So this draft was essentially the first time they've had picks available to trade again. And they went out and got Rob Dillingham. I have a lot of thoughts on this one. I think this is a really smart move. And I think we're going to start to see more of this because with the salary cap, Minnesota's in a horrible position. Like they're gonna have to not cut, but move off of some of these bigger contracts, and they definitely can't bring any free agents or anyone in to help the team. So the only chance you really have of getting talent in the door is drafting someone, and they're at a pick. So their timeline is now. They have probably a year left of Mike Conley, so they have kind of a gap year or a year for Dillingham to learn under Conley, and then hopefully they have their point guard of the future ready to go. They have him and Ant, Jaden McDaniels, Towns. Gobert might be close to aging out at that point, but they'll have a core set. And they'll have Dillingham, who I think is going to be very good on a rookie contract. So I thought it was a really savvy move by them. Now, they don't have any picks for forever, but outside of that, I think it was really wise. So, Lino, did you have any immediate reactions to this one?
Just the same as yours, honestly. I loved this. I thought this was really fun on both sides. Obviously, Minnesota doing what they have to do to bring in new players, but also San Antonio kind of just saying, we really don't like anybody in this draft and we don't care that we have two picks. Like, we just, here, you guys have this one. I didn't love the fit of Dillingham in San Antonio. I think if they're going to get a guard in there, it needs to be a pass first guard. Obviously, I think Dillingham's incredibly talented, but I think his talents are probably needed elsewhere offensively, and especially somewhere like Minnesota. I would have loved him to be in Minnesota or find a way to like Dallas or something. Those are two places that offensive creation is really going to shine. And I think that him next to Ant is just going to be really fun to watch for years to come. And I think that it's worth the cost that they gave up because they could easily trade when the time comes. And if they need more draft picks again, they can trade one of their guys and bring in apparently 5 or 6 draft picks. Like Mikal Bridges is going for 5 picks. Carl Anthony Towns is going like for like 9 picks or something crazy. And so when you're ready to give up, you can just give up. But right now, you might as well just keep shipping them off until you find the team that you need. Caelan, did you have any thoughts about Rob or any questions about kind of how this is going down?
Yeah, excuse me. I had a question about Rob Dillingham, and I'm just curious. You guys obviously know more than me. is his game, is his like natural game? I'm sure he'll learn in the NBA, he'll grow as a player. But is his natural game closer to Mike Conley or closer to D'Lo?
Hmm. I would say of those two, probably D'Lo. I think Kimba is probably my favorite comp for him.
Hmm.
So smaller guard, super explosive. But Kimba could make the right read, was a good pick and roll player. So it's not like
Okay.
he's somebody that's just gonna like chuck up shots.
Hmm.
And he's so explosive. I hope at least he'll be able to put more pressure on the rim than D'Lo does. But I also hope, in this situation where he's going to be surrounded by great defenders, that's his biggest question mark. All he has to do is get to where old Mike Conley was this year, and they can still have the number one defense. So that's what I hope he'll be able to kind of figure out. Lino, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's similar. I think he has a much better basketball IQ and decision making tree than I think D'Lo ever has had, and so I think that's a tough comp. That's probably a little off as far as what he could be like, but I do think he. It also comes down to the fact that his skill set and the team he plays on. There are probably a lot of situations there where his shot was the best shot to take, and so he oftentimes probably shot it more than he passed it. Um, and so that might not be the case when you're teammates with Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels and Karl Anthony Towns. So I think he'll probably be more willing to move the ball around than D'Lo can be at times, and but not so much like Mike Conley just yet. But hopefully, like Micah said, he can get to that defensive floor at the very least.
Okay, I was just wondering because I've just listened to people talk about his skill set. It was interesting to me. I thought he sounded more like a D-Lo to me. Just hearing people talk
Mhm.
about it. Obviously, I've not watched a ton of them. And obviously, the Wolves had D-Lo a few years ago. They acquired Mike Conley. Mike Conley is a much better fit for them. And it's funny. D'Lo's great. He's a great passer too. He just doesn't have those decision making chops. So I
Yeah,
was just kind of curious about how they don't even really make a lot of point guards like Mike Conley more in terms of his mentality alone. Forget skill set.
true.
This way Mike thinks is pretty rare. So I am pretty interested to see Rob Dillingham in there and kind of see how he fits with that team. I
Absolutely.
think that'll be pretty interesting.
And to your point, honestly, I think his role, at least for the first year, maybe even moving forward for a little bit, as Mike Conley kind of ages out, is that it will probably come with being kind of Ant on the floor when Ant's not on the floor. 'Cause a lot of
Hmm.
times the offense can really stall out when he's not out there.
That's true.
But Rob Rob is a crash dummy, and he's gonna go get buckets. And so that'll be a great thing for them to have on the floor. So luckily, he'll get kind of a similar role that Ant has, just probably without as much usage, and I think that'll be good for him.
Okay.
It's well said. I think we can mostly wrap up the draft talk with just a couple
Hey,
other
just
things.
real quick, I just wanted to check in and see what you guys were thinking about San Antonio. How do you feel about them? Like, obviously, like they selected Rob because that's who the Timberwolves wanted, but y- they could have added another piece here to this thing. I think everybody just defaults to, it's the Spurs. They know what they're doing. I'm not always so sure they know what they're doing. Like I don't see necessarily the clearest of visions, but hey, they had Wimby, so you kind of can just draft who you want. Where are you guys at with trading that pick away and kind of just how they've been doing this Wimby build since they've got him?
Go ahead, Micah.
Yeah, I think you can look at it a couple ways. I think what most people default to is what's the rush? Like you have time. But I do think Wimby's going to be ready to win pretty quickly. And
Hmm.
that was kind of my issue with the Stefan Castle pick because at least right now he's a non-shooter. And I think with Wimby, you have the hardest piece to find of what the Celtics have, which is that unicorn rim protector hopefully eventually knock down outside 3-point shooter. And what made the Celtics so good was 5-out spacing.
Hmm.
And I feel like teams, and this was talked about by I think it was Nate Duncan on his show, but the way teams think about really good players in team building is interesting because you can see a unique player and you can say, okay, we're going to build the perfect roster to maximize him. Or you can say, okay, he can cover up stuff for other players so we can play guys that aren't as good at these things. So you
Right.
could look at like the Denver build, we can play Aaron Gordon. even though he can't really shoot because Jokic can shoot and set him up. Or you can look at the
Mhm.
Boston build, which is, yeah, we could play a non-shooter because KP can shoot fives, or we can play five shooters and set the league on fire. So
Mhm.
that was my only issue with the Spurs decision. Is I would have liked to see them go maybe just Dillingham at 4 or trade up for Reed Shepherd just to try and keep shooting around him. But I think ultimately this decision was made because they probably want to be bad for one more year because next year's draft is awesome. And I think
Yeah,
they know Wimby's number 2 for the next 10 years. His, the second best player on a title team was not in this draft. So I think they were like,
that's
we're going
fair.
to take a guy and then wait till next year and hopefully get our
Okay.
second stud.
Yeah, and I'm in the similar vein in that I do believe I liked it. I thought similarly to the Spurs that you could probably punt this year and get something back. And I generally appreciate my shooting coming from more veteran players. Like drafting shooting is not a bad idea, but you just never know if those players can play on the floor. Like
Mhm.
whereas getting even like veteran minimum shooters or role player guys that you can try to find through trades or free agency, that feels like a much more stable place to get shooting than, oh, this guy shot 40% from like the college line, but he can't defend at the NBA level. We really can't put him on the floor at all. So even though he can shoot, we can't play him for the next 3 or 4 years until he develops. And so if you have a guy that you feel like can defend right now and like Steven Castle, you get that guy. And then if you really don't love the other picks out there and you can, set yourself up for, I guess, what, 4 years from now, I think that's when Wimby's rookie deal will be over. You have another pick there for you and a pick swap. So it felt like a good decision from my perspective, but it did feel pretty presumptuous about, 10 through 20 on the draft board this year.
Fair. Yeah, and maybe I heard someone make this joke. Maybe the Spurs are just doing what Houston's doing, and they're actually just going to trade for Anthony Edwards in a couple years and give Minnesota these picks back. Maybe that's the grand plan.
See, I knew
So
Pop was a genius.
yeah, all
Mhm.
along. Okay, to close out, Lino, what was your favorite pick from this draft for any reason?
I gotta go with Zach Edey to the Memphis Grizzlies, only
I thought
because
you
for
might.
some random reason it was the one pick I predicted this year. It was
You
like
did.
we were just randomly texting. I've been on the Zach Edey train, and Micah had asked, like, I wonder why Memphis is trading up, and I was like, because they're Zach Edey truthers, I can feel it.
Hmm.
And lo and behold, they actually draft him with the 10th pick, which is right around where I thought he should go. And I just love the fit. I think it's really interesting. It might not be the most like perfect fit on paper because you obviously want as much spacing around John Moran as possible. But on the other side, I love fitting, this gargantuan man right next to Triple J, who, former defensive player of the year at power forward. You have Zach Edey, who is an elite rim protector at the 5. And I just think it's going to be really fun. They're going to have really, really aggressive scoring at pretty much all 3 levels at the rim, from the 3-point line. Like they are going to blitz you on offense in all kinds of ways that is going to be very tough to scheme for. I think they got young again. I think they got a guy who's relatively healthy, and that's going to matter. And I think when this team gets back to who the Grizzlies were before all the injuries, before all the drama, it's going to be in the vein that they're going to be a high effort, high athleticism, and really, really defensive team. And so I'm excited to see what happens there. And I was excited to see that that's where he ended up. So I think it's a good culture fit. I think it's a good roster fit. And I'll be excited to see how it turns out. What about you, Micah?
Yeah, I agree. It's a good spot for him. I think they're just hoping he can be like Steven Adams plus, and that
Mhm.
could work, and that could be good for them. My favorite pick. This is mostly just based on value compared to where he went versus where I thought he could go, and that's Isaiah Collier to Utah. Obviously,
Mm.
teams were worried about the shot. They were worried about what a weird year it was at USC, but I really believe in Isaiah Collier. I think he'll be a very solid starter in the NBA for a long time. So to get him at almost the very end of the first round, I just think that's great value, and it's a good job by Utah's front office because they know Will Hardy. If a player's decent, he's going to get the very best out of them, and so they took talent there, took best player available, and I think that'll work out really well for them. To close out, even though it has been mentioned 100,000 times, it is still worth mentioning. A very cool thing happened in the second round of the NBA draft, and that was Bronny James was drafted to the Los Angeles Lakers. So, for the first time in NBA history, a father and son will both be active players in the league and they will actually be teammates, which is cool and special. And if you don't think so, you need to reevaluate your values because it's very cool and it's just a heartwarming thing. It gets me worked up how negative people are about this. Like, it's cool.
Man,
Don't overthink it.
nepotism can't be wrong all the time. Sometimes it's just fun, and this is
Yeah.
one of those moments. It's
Yeah.
just,
And
you
yeah.
know, I
Yeah.
loved it. The talk of the, and I'm glad it happened in the second round at the end, as we've like gone over before, and as many talking heads have said, there's so little ready talent in the second round that it is almost always a gamble. So why not, take a flyer on a guy like Bronny James? Even though I also have my tinfoil hat theory that USC is just a terrible program that's ruined a lot of prospects over the past couple of
Yeah.
years. As guys like Isaiah Collier really should have been able to go. I think that's a really, really good player that went really late in the draft because of the season that they had. And I couldn't say that the same thing didn't happen with Bronny. And so I
Mhm.
think there's a shot there. I think it's going to be really fun to watch him play, but I'm most excited to hear what Caelan thinks about his new LA Laker, Bronny James.
Okay, so as far as like him getting drafted and like the moment, like that was great. It was very heartwarming and all. Okay. Now I'm gonna get a little negative.
Oh boy.
People are talking about like them sharing the court or like, oh, injuries. If the team is injured, he might play. What? Guys, if Bronny even looks at an NBA court, I'm gonna throw up. He should. Last year we took Hood Shafino like 17th, and he could not get on the court. And he was like a 6'5" combo guard, could handle, could pass. He had vision. He was strong as hell. He was an athlete. He looked like a real player. He couldn't get on the court. He stunk. And he was scoring like 30 points for South Bay Lakers when he went down there. He was killing South Bay. He couldn't sniff the court. Okay, guys, Bronny's not good. I'm so sorry. He's not good. He's not good. He's not a good player. He's not going to get drafted
Not
if
yet.
his dad is not a legend. He's never going to be good. I just don't see it. I do
Like,
not
what's the
see
point
it.
of being a legend if you can't get your son a job?
I
But
guess so. I guess so. Hood
hey,
Shafino could not get on the court. He's
yeah,
he's nasty. When you look at him, like he's a 6'5" guy. He can do everything. He couldn't get. He wasn't good enough.
Kaylin, you're wrong.
Oh,
And I'll tell you why you're wrong. Because you are talking up a combo guard. And if Kalen's talking up a combo guard, you should know that
no,
something is
no.
going
something
wrong.
facetious is happening here. You
I'm
mean to tell me
saying
of all the combo guards you love, Jalen Hood Shafino the most?
no. He looked so good in like all that, whatever summer league stuff. Like I'm just saying, like that guy
He's
could not get on
still,
the court, and he
I
he
get
had
it.
he had a nice NBA body. He had NBA skills. It looked like he was a real player. And when he went to South Bay, his stats say he's a real player. I don't know. I don't. I'm just hoping Bronny can like compete in South Bay. I don't even know if he's gonna be a good South Bay player, let alone an actual Laker. Like
Yeah, I
let's see him in summer league and let's see how he looks then.
agreed. So yeah, I think I'm a little higher on Bronny's chances of like sticking in the NBA than you are. Like, I think he'd
Well,
be
yeah, I'm
one of
pretty
the
low.
better. I think he'd be one of the better guards in the Euro League. And I think those guys can usually be on the end of a bench in the NBA. And I think he has a good chance to do that. But you bring up something I've been thinking about since the moment he got drafted, which is how are they going to get he and LeBron on the court at the same time? Because the whole league
In a
is
way
going to
that
be
like matters.
yeah, the whole league is going to be waiting for that moment, for that photo, for that pass, for that shot. And normally, you're exactly right, Kalen. A second round pick would only get on the court in a 30-point blowout either way. And that's when you take your 40-year-old superstar off the court. So I'm very curious what you guys think they'll do, because do they just leave LeBron in for an extra second in a
The
blowout just so
Lakers
they
don't blow
can
people
relax?
out. We don't try hard. If the Lakers get a lead, we gonna stop playing because that's what we do.
Y'all could be getting blown out though.
Oh.
Hey, what you mean?
I was literally about to ask. I was like, okay, guys, let's take a bet on what team we think Bronny's going to get time against, because either the Lakers got blown out or the Lakers blew somebody out. And so, like, you can either gamble with like the Celtics or the Nuggets or like the Detroit Pistons or the Trailblazers. Like,
Do,
where is he going to be making his big reveal?
if you guys were JJ Redick, do you just play them a ton together in the preseason and hope people don't ask for it in the regular season?
Oh God, no! LeBron can't play in the pre. I guess he could play a couple games.
Well, like one game, but I'm saying you get like a full quarter of them together in the preseason, and then everybody.
No. Okay. See,
No,
why
it's
we
gotta
gotta be the
somehow
team
be
that's throwing away
uncontrived.
real reps? We supposed to be for real. Like the preseason, you don't get 4 games. We supposed to be for
Hey,
real, trying to
brother.
get some look at some lineups, see how we're doing.
Come
No, we gotta
on.
be the team that's out here just throwing out second round picks with our
You've been here
starters.
Hey man,
before. You've been here before. You were there
Bro,
for the Kobe farewell tour. There's some seasons we were there for the D Wade farewell tour. There's some seasons that just aren't gonna
we
matter.
the
we
Lakers won like
drafted
30 games that year. They
we
were
drafted
terrible.
Shabazz Napier for LeBron.
We
He made us draft
and we
Shabazz
played him.
Napier, and then he
That's not
left.
even his son.
That was a dick move.
He's like, I like this kid from UConn, and then he left.
No, damn well he didn't watch him at all outside of the NCAA tournament.
Nope.
Look, bro, you
So,
Like, man,
Anyway,
you gotta pay your dues. Every team gets a
listeners,
season.
listeners, email us at confidenceirrational@gmail.com and tell us when you think they'll be on the court together at the same time. My prediction is opening night, Lakers in Boston for the ring ceremony. Boston's up 35 in the third quarter. And,
oh, the
and
Get the
Redick-
whole fourth together.
JJ Redick wants to give a spark to the team, so he puts the sun.
You know what? We gonna be playing Miami. We gonna be hella injured, and they gonna just put Bronny in, and y'all gonna lower y'all guard, and he gonna bust y'all ass. You gonna be embarrassed when Bronny scored 14 points on you.
If
Oh my
Bronny
God.
dunks Tyler Hero, I will
I will buy my jersey that day.
I'll do a whole podcast shirtless.
Bro, we should definitely incorporate like the Laker Heat games, like a bet or something that we bring on. That's a great idea, actually. We should do that.
That'd be fun. That'd be a good one.
Well, that's a ton of fun to look forward to. I can't wait. JJ Redick has so much on his plate for a first year coach.
Bro, I can't go this draft pod without mentioning the Lakers' first round pick, Dalt's Connect. I just can't. 30 years as a Laker fan. Let me tell you guys, people hate the Lakers. They hate them. They love to say negative things. If there's like a 50-50 decision they made, people will lean negative. Okay. In 30 years, I've never seen people so complimentary of the Lakers. I was, oh my God, who is this kid? Everybody was saying, oh, amazing pick. How did he fall so low? It's like a top 3 or 4 offensive guy in the draft. So I'm really excited to see this kid, this SEC Player of the Year. I'm excited to see him in Summer League. I'm excited to see him because they said he can play right away. He's 23 years old. So, after last year, we got burned so badly. Last year was so tough. Everybody was playing last year. Everybody rookie played some last year, except our guy. He was the worst rookie in the whole league. It was terrible.
Between him and Omax Prosper, as I guess Jarris Walker wasn't in that draft, but there's just some guys who he was in that draft, right? I was like, none of these guys got a shot. Like, what the hell? Those are the 3 guys I was probably most excited to watch last year.
I feel for Lakers fans because I'm sure y'all have seen that screenshot where it's like Jalen Hood-Schifino, Jaime Jaquez, Brennan Pajipski, Cam Whitmore. It's so tough. And he can still be good. It's just, guys develop at different rates.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm saying maybe JJ sees something in him too that the last coach couldn't really figure out.
True.
Yeah, that guy was a bum. He wasn't playing Max Christie. I'm looking forward to Max Christie.
Oh, Max Christie minutes.
Yes,
his brother just got drafted.
Yes, yeah, he did. I'm really hoping his brother isn't better than him. I'm going to be salty.
He shouldn't be. He should be. Okay, free agency predictions to close out the pod. We will not keep you guys too long today. It's just a fun little offseason episode. But free agency officially starts Sunday. We will start hearing of deals then. Saturday is the opt in, opt out deadline. So we will hear about Paul George, LeBron James, different guys on that day. So just some quick, bold predictions for you guys. Who do we think Paul George is going to be playing for in October? Lino, I want to throw it to you first.
Honestly, I think he stays in LA. I don't know. I feel like anywhere else is just too complicated.
Boring. Come on, give us a good one, Lane. Give us a good one. Come on.
I literally have no idea where else he'd go. What, Orlando? Like, I just don't
No,
think.
okay. Let me jump in. I'm gonna say I want to see Golden State really get serious and throw their hat in this ring because what are we looking at next year for Golden State? Seriously, like what kind of season y'all want to have? You just missed the playoffs. Okay, now I guess we can expect a bumping from Kaminga. You know, he kind of came along there, but you're losing Clay. Who the hell knows another year of Draymond if he's even still on the team? Okay, who knows what's going to happen? Let's get Paul George on this roster and let's compete. You still have Steph in his, just over the hill a little bit, but he's still playing at a high level.
It's
Let's get
true.
Paul George in here, and let's see some interesting Golden State basketball again because I don't know what they're going to do. I really don't.
Yeah. I feel like you made a good point, which is if you want to guarantee Jonathan Kaminga takes a huge leap, you turn him into Paul George. And now you have an all-star. So, sometimes you got to kill your darlings. It might be time to cash in the next generation of Warriors to give Steph one more shot. My prediction for Paul George is the Miami Heat. It's something I've just felt in my bones. Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero almost make the exact same amount of money as him. I don't know if they have to include Jovic, Jaquez, 4 picks, whatever. I think him, Jimmy Bam as your front line is devastating. I think they need to go all in. It's my prediction he will be playing for the Miami Heat. I'm not biased though. So to
I
keep
love that.
to keep moving on, Kentavious Caldwell Pope sounds like he's leaving Denver. Do you guys think he will be in Philly, Orlando, or another team? Caelan, what you think? Caelan, I believe you are muted, but I think you said Orlando.
Lino, you have a disease that you are passing on. You're infecting us.
Yeah, I just want the listener to know I do not have a disease. Definitely not one that's infectious.
No, I said, what is the figure? Do we know like any approximate
I saw
number?
25 years what he's looking
25.
for.
How, how old is KCP? How old is he?
It's like not crazy old, 32, I think.
Okay, feels like he's been in the league a good amount of time now.
30,
Probably been
31
in the
next year
league
will
like
be his
14 years
32.
at this point.
Okay. I don't know, man. I want him to take a pay cut. Just come back to the Lakers, bro. We miss you. We need you.
I've
This
derailed the
whole
show.
segment is just going to be us trying to figure out how to get all these guys on the Heat or the Lakers.
Is that not what we're doing in the segment? I thought we were doing this.
I'm pretty sure I see in like vague font here.
Let's
No,
see.
That's
I
right.
think KCP feels like a Daryl Morey type player, doesn't he? He just feels like a player that Daryl
Yep.
Morey would fall in love with.
Yeah,
Yep.
Philly was what I
Agreed.
was thinking, and it would be they. I mean, everybody needs KCP, but Philly, with how in flux their roster is right now, could
Yeah.
definitely use something stable there.
And if it feels like they're going to strike out, so I could see them doing kind of what Indiana did with Bruce Brown. Like they give him a huge 2-year deal, but the second year is a team option. So next
Mhm.
summer, if they just want to have cap space again, they can just decline that. So I could see something like that. Rapid fire, I'm going to say 4 names. You guys just pick 1 or 2 you think is most interesting to make a prediction for. So we have Klay Thompson, Isaiah Hartenstein, DeMar DeRozan, James Harden. Do you guys think anything interesting happens with either of those 4? Thompson, Hartenstein, DeRozan, Harden. Caelan, what do you think?
The Hardenstein thing, I like this guy a lot. I like him a lot. I think he's a really good player. And if he goes to the right team, it could definitely be interesting. Because I think him going to a certain team, I think it could matter for sure. But he might just want to get that bag. It's probably the best he's, the most valuable he's going to be. So I'm not sure which team, but I think I'm just hoping that Hardenstein goes to a playoff team, a team that matters. because he's a real player, and he's almost better in the playoffs because of his skill set. Super valuable, super mobile center.
Do you like the
So,
OKC fit for him?
oh, how could you not?
Yeah,
How could
I
you
like it
not?
a
That'd be
lot.
awesome. That'd be awesome. Too awesome, to be honest. It's too awesome.
Yeah.
I got to go with DeRozan, and DeRozan should go to the Knicks. I don't know.
Ooh,
I don't know
Mm,
where.
maybe a
That's just a
six-man
dang,
role.
calculation, but
dang.
DeRozan should, rather than going out west, going to an LA team like I'm sure he wants to do, he should go out east, play for the Knicks.
I could picture
Fortunately.
some type of Julius Randle, DeMar DeRozan sign and trade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think
because the Bulls are stupid, so they would do
that's
that.
what I meant. That's what I meant.
Okay, I just want to make sure we were on the
That's exactly
same.
what I meant. And for mine, I will say I think Klay Thompson goes to Orlando. I think they give him like a big
Really?
2-year vet payment, just get knocked down shooting around their wings, and I
Don't do
think that'd
that,
be a fun
Clay.
Dude, I think
Don't
Clay
do
comes to
that.
Miami.
That's so sad. Clay in
fit.
Miami, yes. That would actually
I
be
think Clay
cool to
goes to
me.
Miami, and I think it could work.
Is
There's a
Clay
chance it won't. There's a chance it sucks bad, like
is
some of the Iguodala years. But
can I say something slightly offensive? Is Clay
mm,
better than Duncan Robinson right now?
yes, yes, he's a better shooter.
Yeah, I would say yes. Not
He's
not by a
still
Okay.
lot,
there
but I
defensively.
would say
He's still
yes.
there defensively. He's a little washed, but he's still better than Duncan Robinson. I said that 4 years ago, and everybody yelled at me. By the way, that Duncan Robinson was this close to being Clay
We talked
Thompson.
about it this year. I thought you won. I thought you finally won. So I'm surprised.
No, no. At this point, it's too late. It's too. Duncan had his chance to be better than Clay Thompson, and he flushed it down the drain by starting a podcast.
Also, I don't know if you guys know, but almost every NBA player listens to the show. So I'm just gonna make a plea real quick. Caleb Martin, just opt into that deal. Just go
Please,
ahead and don't
dear
leave.
God,
Please
God,
just
if
go
you're
ahead and
listening,
opt in.
I
Thank
feel
you.
like y'all was disrespecting Caleb Martin earlier this season.
oh come
I don't know
on,
if
come
Micah
on, no, we
does. Micah
weren't.
does not fully appreciate. I know he does look at him. Micah does not appreciate everything Caleb do for y'all. He don't.
I like Caleb. My grandmother loves Caleb Martin. She's so worried he's gonna leave. So Caleb, from me, mom,
Smart woman.
please stay. She is. She knows
Yeah,
hoops.
meanwhile, know
Um,
basketball too. So you might want to listen to her.
she does. Do you guys have any closing statements? Anything else you wanted to hit on? Any predictions or anything for this upcoming off season?
Shout out to Khalil Ware. Welcome to the team, bud.
Yeah, it's
Better be talking
exciting.
about
Sounds like
you.
Jimmy's not gonna demand a trade, which is cool. So shout out
Yeah,
to Jimmy for
thanks, Jimmy.
Can
hanging
Ware
out.
shoot?
He's
I heard
gonna
people
go
saying can
crazy
he shoot
next
the
year.
ball?
Looks like he can
He
shoot a little
shot
bit.
42% on 1 3 per game, um,
But he
which
Not
took
I
he
like it.
took more his freshman year in Oregon, and he took a lot in high school. So I
okay.
Yeah,
think,
he's got great form. He's got great stroke.
yeah,
I saw somebody pull up a stat that like Carl Anthony Towns shot like 25% from three on one shot per game in college, and he's apparently the best big shooter in the league. Um,
yeah.
YouTube viewers will get to see the air quotes there, but yeah. So I think the upside is there on the shooting side, and
I
he's 7 feet
think
tall.
the dream is he's like a role player version of Jaren Jackson Jr., where
Mm,
he guards like the other team's non-shooter, so Bam can still switch the pick and rolls, but then he can fly in. Sorry, hit the
that
mic.
sounds
Fly
really
in.
fun for y'all. Yes.
I think that could
I'm
be
excited.
cool, like
It's a great
Robert
pick.
Williams kind of role. So there's a
I'm
shot of
sad
him
we
to
didn't
come
get Buck
along.
Carrington, but I was
Yeah,
excited for Khalil Ware for sure.
and then they signed I think it's Zion Pullen, but he is a like standard kind of traditional point guard from Florida, which I'm so glad they got him because if your summer league team, they signed him to a 2-way, I think, but if your summer league team doesn't have a real point guard, it is such a
Bro,
disaster.
So
it's
Like
bad.
you want them to get you like all you want to see is your first round pick with the ball, and they never get it unless he's the guard because these
yeah,
guys
it gets bad.
they're trying to get paid. They're
Trying to
trying
get
they're
paid.
trying to get
The
a
only people
deal.
that get paid for passing are the point guards. So yeah.
They said, listen, I need to get these buckets on tape, whether it's for here or Germany.
One last thing I did want to say, because we probably will not talk about this draft class again until the actual players start showing up. Jamal Sheed from Houston got drafted by the Kings, traded to the Raptors. I just want to say it on the record so that we can pull it later when this guy becomes a real deal. Keep an eye out on him. I think he's going to be really, really good. I've randomly watched some of his games when he was in Houston, and I was like, this guy rocks. And
Yep.
I'm not sure why he wasn't higher in the draft, but Jamal Sheed, I hope you have a great season. I hope we have a breakout season real early because I think you're going to be a really good basketball player. But yeah, that's all I got.
Nice. Also, for listeners, you might have actually seen him before because he went viral this past season. They lost a game. His coach was leaving the court and kicked over a trash can. Trash went everywhere. Another player walked behind the coach and kicked a chair, knocked the chair over. Jamal Sheed walks behind them and starts putting the trash back in the trash can and stands the chair back up. So his team had just suffered a loss. Every other person on his team is throwing a fit, and he showed a lot of cool integrity and character there. So definitely rooting for a young man like that.
Not very
Well, guys.
sanitary though.
Well, listen, he's in the locker room. He's about to shower
And then
anyway.
he pulled out a bottle of hand sanitizer out of his pocket.
I'm a
And you hear
professional hater,
whisper,
guys. It's
always
not easy.
prepared.
It's not easy.
It's not easy. Oh,
Well,
man.
everyone, we'll have an episode for you next week. We'll start talking about the Olympic team. We'll react to free agency. So the next time you hear from us, there will be some guys on new teams. So we're excited to talk about that. As always, thank you for tuning in. This episode, as our others, will be on YouTube. So check out our YouTube channel, at Irrational Confidence, TikTok, at Irrational Confidence Pod. As I mentioned earlier, the Gmail, confidenceirrational@gmail.com. And for myself, Micah, friends, Lino and Caelan, thank you for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys next time.